Some of you spoke to the police about what you believe you witnessed here yesterday. You want to know my powers? Know who I am? See what I can do. Think of the person you love most in your life. Now that person will know what it is to lose someone they love.
Henryk, proszę cię! Nie rób tego!
My name isn't Henryk. My name is Magneto.
X-Men Apocalypse is the sixth X-Men movie, minus the spin-offs, because I really don't count them, part of the X-Men universe. But we see Bryan Singer returning back behind the director's chair for the fifth time with Simon Kinberg's script. We see returning stars Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Rose Byrne, and we see some new faces like Oscar Isaac, Sophie Turner, and Ty Sheridan. This is kind of like the third film in the newest iterations of X-Men that culminates what Matthew Vaughn started with First Class and Singer continued with Days of Future Past. Overall, it's a film that talks about family and friendship. It's a film that wants us to feel what powers can do to a person physically and mentally, and how tolling it could be. Yet half the film is diverted to showing us a grand-scale epic battle that seems very generic and at times boring. I knew coming into this film it was going to be a different film from the others from what I've seen. They've given me more ideas what could have been than what we were given on screen. The movie opens with the worshipping back in 3600 BC of Egyptians of En-Salvanur, as we will come to see as Apocalypse, played by Oscar Isaac. It's a really cool sequence where we get introduced to the four guards that preserved his life because, unfortunately, he gets betrayed by his worshippers and gets buried alive. We are then transported into 1983, 10 years after the events of Days of Future Past, and we get to catch up with everybody. We see that Charles Xavier has now a fully functional Institute for the Gifted that has a lot of enrollments of different mutants there. We also see Eric Lindner living in Poland with a wife and a daughter, peaceful, escaping from what he has been doing for the past several decades. We also see Raven out there rescuing mutants that are in dire need. I don't get the plot line to that, but I guess she wants to save people, but really doesn't care at the same time. And then we also get to see introduction of new students. We get to see how Scott Summers started forming his powers. We get to be introduced to Jean Grey as well. We also see Nightcrawler and Angel. There's a lot of moving parts in the first half of the film, and that's the best parts of the film. I thought that the introduction of the New Mutants were really done well. They were fresh faces to existing characters that we've seen. The chemistry between them were really well done, and those were some of the enjoyable moments. Even when Apocalypse comes out and starts recruiting his new four horsemen that he always has to, want to cleanse the world, as he says. I like how Storm's powers were introduced. I like how Psylocke was introduced. Angel was introduced. Yet, all that was pretty cool in the first half of the film, and it's self-contained. And I had the most fun with that part of the film. A lot of it has to do with not only seeing where everybody's heads is at, but then, especially with the New Mutants, they are given these powers and they're growing up with it. Yet at the same time, they fear it. They don't know how to control it. They're always at a loss. And I thought that kind of examination was pretty cool. Also making a return is Evan Peters' Quicksilver, which, for all intents and purposes, in Days of Future Past, his sequence in that movie where he takes out all the guards as, Magneto is about to kill everyone, I thought was pretty awesome to do. We're all thinking, is Bryan Singer going to do another iteration of that scene? And he does. And now that we have expectations for it, he still delivers on the scene. Not as good as Days of Future Past, but I thought it was very fun scene to have. That being said, this is where the movie gets bogged down. There's a 30-minute gap before the last 10 minutes of the film, which I thought wrapped the film up really well in a bow, and that's different directions that they can take the film. But there was a 30-minute gap in that film where 15, 20 minutes of that, about 15, 20 minutes of that runtime was an introduction to a character that, one, if you saw the trailers, you already spoiled out to you, so I'm not going to spoil it here. But the scene itself was cool, but the placement of it was forced. I hate it because they really didn't need it. It was more of, you know, Fox telling Bryan Singer probably like, hey, there's this character that everyone likes. You gotta put this character in. I don't know how you're gonna do it. Do it for like 5 minutes, but make it work. And even though that scene was pretty cool, it's pretty brutal. It pretty much sets up to what we are expecting for a future film that's coming out later next year. It just did not fit this movie, and this is where I can tell the movie started going waywards. Because after that, just like you see in the first trailer, you know, it is about apocalypse. It is about the destruction. So you got New Mutants versus this apocalypse, and it became very generic. With a lot of superhero movies going now, we see a bunch of destruction and disaster happening on a global scale where everything is going crazy. And if you watch all the other X-Men movies, for the most part, it's always been a human element story. It's always been about the MLK versus Malcolm X type of thinking. That's why you have Charles Xavier here. You have Eric Lynchner or Magneto on the other side. They both have different philosophies. Even though this is an X-Men movie, I knew they couldn't explore that. Not for this film, because now they have a singular entity that they're trying to take out. What happens is that since you have a singular entity that is all powerful and knowing, it's hard to make an X-Men movie revolve around that, because now the very dual opposition of one another just doesn't work when both of them have to come to get to a greater good. And what happens is it becomes generic. It just becomes lackluster to me. And I do not know what Bryan Singer could have done to make it more lively or energetic or entertaining, but it felt stagnant. It felt like everybody's doing their P's and Q's. Everything was set up perfectly just for certain moments, and I just didn't buy into that last 30 minutes. If they would have somehow made those 30 minutes more interesting, this movie could have been one of the best, if not the best X-Men movie. It's just that middle chunk of that film just did not work. Now, what did work is a lot of the acting on the board, and it starts with Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. These two just not only have good chemistry with one another, they by themselves sell on the characters. There's this moment with Eric in Poland that happens that, could have been really cheesy. Could have been like, oh, this is some other character doing this again, whatever. But the way Fassbender sells the scene makes you feel and makes you understand why he's doing the things he's doing. McAvoy, on the other hand, he has perfected this look of empathy and sympathy. For him, Charles Xavier can read people's minds and he feels what they feel. But sometimes it's kind of hard to convey that, right? But he does it so well that you just buy into the fact, and I absolutely love it. The new mutants that they introduced, for the most part, were really good. Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, they gave her a really badass moment in the film, does really well. Ty Sheridan has that kind of, smirk of what Scott Summers can be, and that vulnerability that we sometimes didn't get to see with James Marsden in the first couple films. I'm very excited for how this is going to turn out. Um, I think it was Cody Smith McPhee. He plays Nightcrawler. He almost steals every single part he's in, just of the kookiness that happens with Nightcrawler. Totally enjoy it. Um, One disappointment was Olivia Munn as um, Psylocke and Alexander Shipp as Storm. It was weird because they emphasize on these two kind of new mutants, a part of the Four Horsemen, and I never read any of the comics, so I don't really know as much. But I guess in the comics, the Four Horsemen just stand around, and that's what they did. They stood around. I didn't care for them, which kind of is a waste of characters. Hopefully, if they do introduce Storm more into later movies, maybe we'll see something better. But you know, just those characters, they didn't do anything for me. Overall, I would tell you that this film isn't the best X-Men film that's out there. It has a lot of good things going for it. The acting itself is wonderful to watch. If not alone, to see Fassbender and McAvoy on the screen playing these characters almost makes it the worth price of admission. I like the new characters that they introduce. I like some of the limos that is happening. I like the harken back to what First Class did and what Days of Future Past did. But this movie kind of showed that on a grand scale, X-Men films don't work. When it comes to the MLK Malcolm X aspect of the stories, they do work. But on a global scale where they're fighting entity, we realize that it just doesn't work altogether. I give this movie a B minus. It is still worth a C, just because I do believe that it has more good than bad. But I really do believe, if reports are right, that Bryan Singer is going to take a break, and he should. I mean, he's done 5 of these, and sometimes you just need a new voice in there. That's why First Class is very revealed, because Matthew Vaughn came in, did that, but also X-Men Last Stand had Brett Ratner, so it can go either way. But hopefully, this is a good jumping off point to show us the new mutants that were introduced, and hopefully give them another franchise with now McAvoy, Fassbender, and J-Law taking the back seat and pushing these kids into the forefront. So what did you guys think of the film? Did you guys like it? Are you guys excited for it? What are some of your favorite moments, or what did you not like about it? Do you think Bryan Singer should come back and do the movie? Next one, or is there any directors out there who you think should take over this franchise as well? Just let me know. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at JNGO11, again at JNO11. You can also get me at my website at jnofilmthoughts.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time, go out there and see some more movies.